Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rob's Movie Reviews. Now, this week I want to talk about a film that is one of my personal favorites. It was directed and co-written by one of my all-time favorite, if not my all-time favorite director, Mr. Stanley Kubrick. I've already covered one of his films, excuse me, in my reviews. I believe The Shining, and today I'm going to discuss A Clockwork Orange, a fantastic movie. This film really highlights Stanley Kubrick's brilliance, his abilities as a writer and a director, producer. This movie is a standout film. It's a one of a kind. There's nothing else like it before or since. It's a very unique, very classic film. It was based off a novel by the same name. Of course, as always, Kubrick takes quite a bit of liberties when he adapts a book into a movie, and this one was no exception. It does stick pretty close to the original source material, but he puts his own twist on it that makes it completely his own work. The story in our movie takes place in the future. Could be distant, could be closer to our own present. It's never really explained, but it's a dystopian type of society. And our protagonist in this film, or antagonist, depends on how you want to look at him, is the character Alex, a teenager growing up in this dystopian time. He's the head of a gang, which the group he calls his droogs, that follow him around and pretty much do his bidding. It's a society where youth has basically all semblance of order has just crumbled away. Youth pretty much is free to do whatever they want. They go out, they rape, they pillage, they steal. Alex is no exception to this. Him and his droogs go out at night. They usually start out by stopping by a place called the Corona Milk Bar, where they drink milk that is heavily implied, and they never come out and say it, but it's heavily implied that it's laced with some kind of chemicals that gets them high. And then they go out and seek to get involved in a little of the ultra violence, as they like to call it. They like to go out and commit violent acts. They like to beat people within an inch of their life for no reason whatsoever, just for the pure thrill of it. Alex and his droogs do this on a nightly basis, and because of it, he very rarely goes to school. There's a scene early in the film where the principal of the school that he's supposed to be attending comes by his home, wanting to know why he hasn't been there. Principal basically lets Alex know he doesn't think anything of him. He knows he's a loser, and it's just going to be a matter of time that his lifestyle is going to catch up to him. Of course, Alex just laughs this off. The principal leaves. Alex goes out. He picks up a couple girls at the shopping mall, takes them back to his apartment, has sex with them, and then dumps them. Basically takes them out on the street. See ya, bye. Dumps them. He has no respect for women. They're just objects to him. And it's around this time in the film also where we find out that Alex, through all this terrible personality traits that he is a lover of art, and he has a deep appreciation for classical music, particularly for Mozart and Beethoven, which we hear a lot of their music in the soundtrack of this film. One night, Alex and his droogs, they get a little too carried away. They go to a house of a very wealthy man, a writer, and they break in. They trick his wife into opening the door, and once they break into the house, they beat the old man up and then basically tie him up, make him watch while they rape his wife over and over and over again. After this, the Droogs, his gang, begins to feel like maybe Alex is taking them down the wrong path, and they kind of challenge him for leadership of the gang, and that doesn't turn out too well for him. Alex ends up beating him with a club and slices one of his gang members' arms open with a knife to basically establish himself once again as the alpha male, that he is in control and that they are to follow him. The following night, they go out again. They go to a house where a very old, eccentric woman lives with her cats. Alex manages to break into the house while the rest of them stay outside and keep watch. And he goes in, and at first he's just messing with the lady, but she tries to fight him off, and that angers him. And he ends up picking up a statue that she has in her house and beating her to death with it. He literally kills her. Now, when he gets back outside, we can hear the sirens, so we know that the police are on their way. And this is when Alex is double-crossed by the rest of the gang. They smash a glass bottle on his head, leave him laying while they run off, and he ends up being arrested and charged with the murder of the elderly lady. The police have zero respect for him. One of the detectives is questioning him, ends up beating the living crap out of him. His high school principal, or his school principal, shows up. They call him in. He comes in, and of course he's gloating. He's, I've told you this day was coming, Alex, and I'm glad to see it come. You're a worthless piece of garbage. I mean, he just really tears into him. And Alex is convicted of the murder and sent to prison. Now, while he's in prison, the newly elected Prime Minister of England has endorsed a new program. It's a behavioral modification program that they codenamed Clockwork Orange. And he's looking for suitable inmates at the prison, some of the most violent and foul criminals in the system, to experiment and to try the program out on and see if it works. And Alex gets chosen. He goes through a horrible ordeal where he is tied into a seat. His eyes are literally pulled open with I don't know what you call like forceps. Small pair, they pull his eyes open where he can't blink. They're constantly putting drops in his eyes to keep him moisturized. At the same time, they're pumping some kind of medication into him that makes him feel extremely sick at his stomach. And the whole time this is all going on, they have him facing a movie screen where they're showing just nothing but violent images over and over and over again. And he goes through this 6 hours a day, every day of the week, for nearly 3 months. And the whole idea is to eventually get him to where he associates violence with physical violence with becoming physically ill, violently ill, to where his stomach cramps, and just the thought of doing something violent or something wrong, morally wrong, he becomes violently ill at the stomach. And once they have decided that the treatment has taken hold and that he's cured of his behavior, they release him. He goes back home, only to find that his parents have rented his bedroom out. They've got a boarder living with them, and they really don't want him back because of his actions and his attitude when he was younger. He really caused them a lot of grief, so they don't want him back. He goes out on the streets, and he begins to run into a lot of the people that he has done terrible things to in the past, and they seek revenge on him. And one scene, he's being beaten down by a group of old men, one of which he had beaten the living tar out of earlier in the movie. He went and got his friends, and they ganged up on Alex, and they're beating him up. The police show up. They disperse the old men. When they help Alex to his feet and he looks up into their faces, we see that the two officers are actually two of the members from his gang. And of course, we know how they felt about him. They double-crossed him and did him dirty. And They have no intention of taking him to jail. They take him way out in the countryside, and they beat the living tar out of him and leave him. And beaten and bloodied, he crawls until he finds a house, and he goes inside. Well, lo and behold, it just happens to be the house of the old man, and the old man that they had tied up and forced to watch while they raped his wife. And at first, the guy doesn't recognize him. He truly wants to help Alex, but then Alex is in the bathtub singing the song "Singing in the Rain." And as the old man goes by in his wheelchair and hears Alex in there and hears that song, hears him singing that, he remembers that the whole time his wife was being raped and he was being beaten, the guy with the mask on that was raping his wife was singing that song. It all comes back to him. He realizes who Alex is. He calls some people over to the house. Together they drug Alex. They take him upstairs to the attic. They leave him up there. They find out that the music, that's something I forgot to mention, by the way. The whole time that he was going through this program, the background music to all the violent images that he was watching was Beethoven's Ninth. So unfortunately, not only did he get conditioned to become violently ill whenever he thinks of committing an immoral act or violence toward another person, he cannot hear that music. If he hears that music, it's the same reaction. He becomes violently ill. The old man discovers this, so he has a stereo, speakers right outside the room. He's got Alex locked in, and they just play that movement over and over and over again, turned up as loud as they can get it, and just literally torturing Alex to the point where he jumps out of the window. He's up on in the attic, so he's like 3 stories up. He jumps out, intended to kill himself. He can't take it no more. He wants it to end. He doesn't die. He wakes up in the hospital, only to find out that the government, there's been a new paradigm shift in the opinions of the people, and now people think that this treatment is inhumane and that it shouldn't be used. So the government's under heat to cure Alex from what they did to him. So they turn around and they put him through a process while he's healing from all of his wounds to also reverse the subliminal programming they did in his brain. And at the end of the film, someone from the Prime Minister's office comes in, has a talk with Alex. He ends up being set up with a great job, great money, a house, everything he could ever want, as long as he doesn't make any more problems for the government and tells the newspapers and the TV news that he's fine and that he holds no grudge and everything's good. So it really, the message you get from this movie, you got this guy that was just an absolute horrible human being, and at the end of it all, he ends up getting rewarded for it. I don't think that's the message Kubrick intended, but that's one way that you can interpret how the film works out. Now, it's a great movie. It's a wonderful story. It's a bizarre journey, but it's a wonderful, entertaining film. It's a fantastic cinematography. It's probably one of the best visually one of the best films Kubrick ever did. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen A Clockwork Orange, you definitely need to check it out. Alex is played by the very talented Malcolm McDonald. He does a great job in this film. I've always liked him. He's not one of my favorite actors, but I have enjoyed a lot of his work through the years, and he was very good in this film. So if you haven't seen A Clockwork Orange, you definitely need to get it and check it out. If you like quirky, bizarre, off the beaten path type films, this is definitely one that you want to check out. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this review of A Clockwork Orange. And until next week, when I'm back with another video, you all take care.